everyone. We're going to call the Chicago Wilderness Alliance July quarterly meeting to order. If we can, it's so wonderful to have everybody here. I'm going to do introductions first so we can all get to know. It's great to have everybody out. You know, lately we've been through the pandemic, we've been meeting through Zoom using the efficiencies of our online technology, which is pretty spectacular for a 4-state regional alliance. And we've got partners all the way from Michigan all the way to Wisconsin. So talking about connecting everybody is awesome, but nothing beats face-to-face communication, building relationships one-on-one, and really what the alliance is geared to do is to be that facilitator of an alliance network to connect us together on these large green vision initiatives. My name is Elizabeth Kessler, and I'm the executive director for the McHenry County Conservation District in Northeast Illinois. And I'm also serving as the chair of the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. And it's my honor. I work here with the team, our steering committee, the executive council members, and our partners to help facilitate with some amazing volunteers. So thank you and everyone that puts in to make Chicago Wilderness Alliance what it is. We'll go around the room and do introductions, and if you could just, share who you are, we're glad to have you here. And Laura, I'll start with you.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Laura Riley. I'm the coordinator of Chicago Wilderness Alliance, and thank you for being here. And we're going to talk.
Tom Meehan, and the veterinary services at Brookfield Zoo. Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, Salon. Tom Meehan, the veterinarian at Brookfield Zoo. So I represent the Chicago Salon Society.
Okay, I'm Lindsay Diggs. I'm an environmental program manager with ComEd. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sarah, but I recently took over all of our stewardship activities. So glad to meet you.
Good morning, I'm Pete Leckie. I'm a longtime steward with the North Branch Restoration Project for Forest Preserve, and so happy to have them speak. This Oscar continues with my day job with the associates, and then I'm here as a representative of Southeastern Wisconsin, I live in Western County, and I'm active Jim Harrison, I'm the citizen of Conservation, and I'm on the steering committee for Chicago.
I'm Wilson, and I'm a steward for Illinois Beach State Park.
My name is Linda Alberti, and I work for the Southeastern
I'm Joe Savage. I work with Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves as a field rep, and we're working together with Don and Melissa to try to get a stewardship effort here at Illinois, among other things. Another stewardship.
Hi, I'm Jay McBride, retired from the Illinois Attorney General's Office, Environmental Bureau of State, in livestock operation, pollution enforcement for about 24 years. And in my retirement, I was getting involved with wildlife. I hooked up with Project Coyote to work on the wildlife killing contest issue, and just always enamored with Chicago wilderness. So, Susie Schreiber, Wealthy Clever Citizens Advisory Group, and unfortunately of late the issues in the Memphis shoreline.
Dan Cedarberg, IDNR, the site superintendent for Illinois Beach State Park.
David Garrigan, I'm an ecologist and conservation biologist at Heritage College in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I sit on the board of the Forest Service.
Jerry Edelman, Open Lands, and also on the steering committee.
Jim Grego, Lake County Forest Preserves, and wildlife.
Gary Glowacki, also Lake County Forest Preserves, and manager of conservation ecology.
Tom Smith, land manager for Shiawassee West.
Wassick, Lake County Forest Preserve Commissioner, Lake County Board.
Jack Runner with Tetra Tech, environmental consultant, and here after I worked on a variety of cleanup and habitat restoration projects throughout Chicago Wilderness, and been involved in the visioning committee for Chicago Wilderness Alliance, and then also working on the hub. Right? So
Morning, everybody. John Rogers, Assistant Director of the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and I also serve on the.
That's Karen, the alliance as well. From the very days when we got started. So, thank you, John. All right, for those online,
Do folks want to mute themselves and give a quick introduction? We can start with David.
Thanks, Laura. David Schemberg, Riverwoods Preservation Council, and a member of the steering committee. And my schedule was such that I hope to be there in person, but here I am online.
Great, welcome. How about Andrew?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Hawkins from the Forest Preserve District of Will County. I serve as the Director of Conservation Programs.
Great. Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Beyer, Executive Director of the Technology Alliance. Happy to be online. Thank you.
Casey?
Hi, this is Casey Sullivan of Argonne National Laboratory.
You, Bill?
Yeah, Bill Miller at Northwestern University, part of the Tackling Climate team and the science part of that.
Cherie?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cherie Fisher. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service.
Daniel?
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I'm Daniel Suarez, the Conservation Manager with Audubon Great Lakes and also one of the co-chairs of the CWA Ag Team.
Leslie?
Hi, I'm sorry I can't be there as well. Leslie Dorworth, Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and I'm on the steering committee.
Mark?
Hi, everybody. Mark Bowman. I'm at the Field Museum. I'm also on the steering committee. I wish I weren't at the Field Museum today. Wish I were there with you guys.
Thanks. We do too. Patty?
Yeah, hi, Patty Vitt, Lake County Forest Preserve District. I am the co-lead for the Managing Healthy Landscapes. And like everyone else, I wish I were there with you.
Patrice?
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Charleboy. I'm the Assistant Director for Outreach with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant.
Ralph?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ralph Schultz. I'm the Executive Director with the Forest Preserve District of Will County.
Susan?
Hello, this is Susan Ask with Animalia Project and University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, joining you from Champaign.
Great. Victoria?
Good morning, everyone. Victoria Wittig. I'm the Northwest Indiana Urban Waters Federal Partnership Ambassador.
Okay. Oceana?
Hi, I'm Oceana. I am a community engaged intern working with the Chicago Wilderness Alliance.
Okay, I think we have everyone. If I didn't call your name, would you please unmute and feel free to introduce yourself? Okay. Great.
Terrific. Well, welcome, and we're so glad that everybody made the opportunity, whether you made the trip. I know everybody would rather be outdoors in the field, and those that are back at home in their offices, just to make the time for the Alliance, because this is commitment, and the power of our work is all done through the volunteerism and everybody leaning into their organizations to help provide the capacity with all the specialists that you have to make everything happen. We start off with the shared agreement, but before I get into that, actually, John, you want to do a welcome and give a little bit of background, if you can, about, not to put you on the spot, but just a little bit where we're at, about this beautiful facility and park, and then we're gonna.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here in the room. And for those of you online, I know a lot of you regretted not being able to be here. And I'll tell you, for those of us here, at least for myself, it's this, I get this distinct feeling of skipping school today. I was on a call with some colleagues in Springfield in the parking lot out here, and I said, sorry, I got a date with the beach down here today. It is a beautiful place, and very fitting that we have a steering committee meeting here for Chicago Wilderness. 27 years ago, when we launched Chicago Wilderness, we called it a biodiversity initiative. That's when there was a growing awareness of the loss of the planet's biodiversity, but that stepped down to North America and also to the Chicago region as well. And
many of you who are land managers were talking about the big challenges you face with invasive species, and I'm not going to go down the litany of threats, but it was becoming too much to cope with. So we formed this biodiversity initiative, and I think we used that wonkish word intentionally because it was time that people know what biodiversity is. But knowing that they wouldn't know it intuitively, we decided we need to come up with actual sites that reflect the best of the best. So people can go and see, oh yeah, here's what you mean. Illinois Beach was one of those, I'll call it a delightful dozen sites that we thought, go there, you will get a sense of what biodiversity is all about. So it's great that we're here today doing this. This is an amazing site, 6.5 miles of lakefront, the last remaining beach dune swale communities left. Just terrific sites that you're going to see if you take a walk later today. For those of you who haven't been here before, 650 species of plants. The greatest concentration of state listed endangered and threatened species in any state park in Illinois. So it is a flagship for us here. We've got wonderful volunteers. I'm looking at Don Wilson here. We've got a wonderful Lake Plain partnership. Not too many years ago, this site was designated as a Ramsar wetland under the International Ramsar Treaty. So this truly is a very, very special place. And I can't tell you when it became a state park. I want to say in the 50s. Damon, you may. 48. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, and to that point, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that this is the 60th anniversary of the Nature Preserve System. It was formed with the establishment, the enactment of the Illinois Natural Areas Preservation Act in 1963, which set up the Nature Preserve System. And right here was the very first nature preserve. And our Nature Preserve System is celebrating the 60th anniversary. And I want to invite you all to an event that's going to happen here August 28th. So that is the actual day that the act was enacted. And on that day, we're convening a special meeting of the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission. And they are going to dedicate an addition to this nature preserve here, 137 acre or so addition to it, which will bring the total to a lot of acres. I don't know what the number is. Probably, maybe you guys know. How much is nature preserve here now? That's okay. 800. So yeah, it'll bring us up to close to 1,000 acres, if not going over 1,000 acres of nature preserve here. So we're trying to make a big deal out of this. We have put a placeholder on the governor's calendar. You never know about such things. The day before is when you find out if that person will actually attend or not. But it is on his calendar, and we're trying to sell it as an opportunity for the governor to say some words about Illinois' amazing biodiversity and maybe some other things as well. But it is going to be a great event, and there'll be some other things going on in association with that. So put that on your calendar. We'll probably get notifications out to everybody through Chicago Wilderness about the details. The agenda is shaping up now, but 28th of August.
John?
Yep.
Could I add something to that?
Sure.
If you mind?
Absolutely.
So, and I'm probably friends of the Forest for Nature Preserves, maybe bring it up, and they're actually planning a 3-day festival. So Saturday, hopefully nature preserves all over the state that are open to the public will be open and encourage people to visit. There'll be website. But then on that Saturday, or Sunday rather, the 27th in Lockport, the Illinois State Museum has a wonderful gallery, and Philip Juris, who's a fantastic landscape painter who is from Georgia, has had a lot of time to show this at the Botanic Garden a couple years ago, and all of his works are of Illinois nature preserves. So it'll be a special tour with Philip, and then a symposium in Lockport at the Gaylord Building with the reception. So just want to say, we've got the 3 days there. I want to get that in as well. If people can't make it there on Monday, then I'm out to Lockport on Sunday. Okay.
And if you go to the Nature Preserves homepage, I'm sure it'll have all of that information on there as well. So
thanks, John.
Thanks again for everybody for coming out and joining us here to this very special place.
Thanks. Thank you, John. Well done. All right, welcome. Welcome. If you're coming and you want to get coffee or tea, we have that here. And just a reminder, bathrooms are down the stairs or over by the front desk here. All right, well, one of the things that we've done some work with our JEDI, our Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion is a shared agreement. And so just with our meetings, and we use this in our TBI groups, we use this with the steering committee, and then with the executive council, that this is an opportunity for a forum with everybody having shared spaces to be able to let others speak and all things here, safe environments of sorts. And so we just, if there's an agreement that we're all committed here to sharing those spaces and our diversity and platform. So, all good. Okay. So with that, the next thing we have is just an approval of the agenda today for our meeting. If I could have a motion to approve today's agenda. Moved by Jack. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion on the agenda that we have for this morning? Okay. There being none, all those in favor of the agenda to be approved as presented, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Okay, the agenda has been approved. The next item that we have is our consent agenda, and
welcome our-
let me introduce our
Yes.
partners here, and then I'll go through the slides here. We'd like to welcome the Kettle Moraine Land Trust and the North Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District as new partners to the Alliance and to the Executive Council. So we're so glad that we continue to see new members come forward and re-engage with us and new partners. And today it's just awesome to see members from Wisconsin. That's been a really big focus with the new branding of the Alliance, is that we are an alliance and a four-state alliance, not just Illinois, not just Indiana, but Michigan and Wisconsin as well. So, which is pretty awesome. So thank you and welcome for being with us. The other items, I'm just going to go through here just to share. We have a consent agenda item, and these consent agenda items, all discussion occurs with the steering committee. Just a little bit of background, the way the Chicago Wilderness Alliance works is the governing body of the Alliance is the partners, which is in the Executive Council meeting. So the quarterly meetings are the meetings where the business is done. The steering committee is appointed, elected by the partners through the Executive Council, and our work is to help guide, but also do the back office type building, vetting, kind of the business work that you would have, because we have a mighty staff of one. We're grateful. Laura Riley, who does an awesome job, and a communication specialist, and then we hire in consultants to help here and there. But really, it's all the power of our organization. So the steering committee helps guide that. The items on the Executive Council, we started also now using Session Lab, a new tool, which is pretty cool. And we're hopeful that our GBI and working teams can also begin to use this platform. It helps build your agenda. You can link all the minutes and activities. It's in the cloud. And then you can make changes to it, and it's live. So that has been available through your link today. But we do have listed in all these items were provided in advance to you. So we've introduced our new partners, and that's to accept them. We have our Executive Council meeting minutes of April 2023. That was the last time we convened. We have our treasurer's report for Q2. So that's April, May, and June. We are on a fiscal year, January 1st through the end of the calendar year. We do have a corrected treasurer's report for Q1, which was January, February, and March. And those restated reports are included. Just to explain that for those that are new, with the Congress that occurred last year, we had an invoice that was received late. We wanted to make sure it was booked in the right period. And so we had to go back and adjust that. That was a journal entry on Friends of the Forest Preserve, who serves as our sponsor. And so we've corrected that all to date. So our fund balances and where we're at with our net assets, everything is up to date and correct. So we're just correcting that for transparency. We also have a position description for our Green Vision Initiative leads. That was something that came out of not only Congress, but discussions through our JEDI work. Basically, for those that are leading our initiatives forward for equity purposes, the opportunity to provide a stipend for their leadership. And so within the position description, it describes that. We've also then committed, and we're looking for a recommendation of support that we are agreeable to offering a stipend for their work at $1,500. The proposal is that that would begin effective for half a year. So it would be half of that for this year. And then we're budgeting for the full amount for next year for our GBI leads. So that has been included. We have the Bold Bison, who has been serving as our consultant to assist us with our Green Vision initiatives, pulling that together, has done an amazing job. They finished up their report. They presented it to the steering committee, and so we're just presenting that so we can accept that report, and there'll be more discussion as we go forward on that. We also have vacancies in the steering committee, and so included, we have unexpired terms, and we're proposing that these be filled. With one expired term being replaced by Vince Moscow, who is here, from Hay and Associates, and Sherry Fisher from U.S. Forest Service. Both are familiar with Chicago Wilderness, would be added value to help us with our work. And so we are proposing that we create one new at-large position to bring 11 to 12 along with the officers. And so that's included as well for that. And then we have approval of the Chicago Wilderness Alliance Midwest Burn Training Program. Again, establishing standards and training, and this has been teed up through the Managing Helping Landscapes through the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. So that is on the agenda for approval. And then we have our fiscal year 2024 draft budget. So before I briefly just highlight the budget, were there any questions about any of those other items that are forward on the consent agenda?
How does the process work for nominating somebody for your steering committee?
Okay, so great question. So the way our bylaws work, these are unfilled terms. And so they have come through the steering committee, and we've identified there's some interest. We put out a call out to our partners for anyone that would like to step forward. We recruit and actively engage. We want diversity representation. Later on, we're going to have positions that tee up. So you're eligible the way it's set for officers like myself or at-large positions. They're 3-year terms. Those 3-year terms, you're eligible for reappointment for a second term. There is a nominations group, so we're going to do a call out for those terms. For those that are in the first singular term, we asked, do they wish to re-up, and to go on to their second term? And if so, that'll come forward for a vote to the whole entire partnership later this year. And then there will be one position we're looking for a treasurer our treasurer wishes to move into an at-large seat. And Mike has done a great job. So we're going to be specifically with all teeing up. So there's a call out now for additional treasurer position. Laura?
Very specifically, there's a form that is included in our website, and it's linked on our website, and it's also in our newsletter that you just click on and just submit some basic bio information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that went a little long way, but just to try to explain for those that it's an open, transparent process. We want diversity and then those opportunities to serve. So we have 2 members that are stepping forward for that. Any other questions? Great question. Okay, I'll briefly just go into, I'm not going to detail the budget. It's a very exciting budget in your packet. We show year over year, and this is our draft budget. So for process, you'll see the final budget to the Executive Council at our October meeting. So we do our comparative where we are 6 months into the budget. Most of our dues revenues, partnership dues, comes in at the beginning of the year and then November and December. But what's differently, I think, about this next upcoming budget are the 2 grants that we have sought that are really big opportunities for the Alliance and are going to provide us the capacity to do some amazing work. Lord, do you want to go to the next? The grant site. So he's applied for the IDNR Urban and Community Forest Grant for $140,000. Our goal in our discussion with the grant committee group, we have a working group, was to identify funding sources that are going to help the collective alliance and to move our work forward. And clearly, organizational capacity to help us do the work to help all of our partners in the field. So again, advancing some important work that we've been doing on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, supporting our current cafes, and then also some core communication functions such as website materials to help things function, have everybody communicate with one another, and getting the word out on promoting all the great work on the ground work that's happening by our partners. The second big grant was the National Urban Community Forest Grant for $6 million. And that's a 5-year grant, and it's a big ask. It's a competitive field, but we are very optimistic. It's a very exciting program, and I'll just give highlights, and then I will let Mark and Laura and anybody else who wants to tip into this. But we're looking at convening groups around the Alliance region, obviously focusing with our Conservation Congress and some specific outreach on our climate action plan for nature, which is exciting, of building regional capacity for our GBI work, supporting emerging conservation leaders. We know that there's going to be spaces with retirements and building that bandwidth and ability to guide them and help them grow in the space. And just so very, I want to say a very optimistic but a great opportunity. So we don't know that we're going to get both of those grants or that they'll be in the full amount. We are hopeful that we will clear before the final budget is adopted, but a lot of the activities that you see in the detailed budget, if we do not receive the funding, then we will go back and we'll try to figure out what are some other pathways to make these things happen. But things will still go forward. It's just we have a lot of opportunities should we get the grants. Mark, or anyone else that want to speak to the grants that are in the budget or the activities planned?
Thanks for that. I think you did a wonderful job summarizing. I would just say that this has been a really good conversation that's taking in a lot of where the Alliance has been over the last year or two and starting to really make a good match to some of the programmatic funding opportunities that are existing out there. So we've tried since with some proposals since February. The one for NUCFAC was in June. There are some other opportunities ahead, and each time we go, we're really feeling like we've got an excellent case. So we'll know about this one soon, and I really want to commend the work of Laura here on this and others who've been amazingly helpful on the process.
And you and Ted and Kristen as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, anybody else on discussion on the proposed budget? So basically it's $1.3 million on operating revenue. We're not looking at this point to have to invest fund reserves over the last several years. We have invested in reserves that we've had to build back in, to build capacity. And we've been doing some great opportunities. We always end the year better than anticipated. And then expenditures about 1.2 million. So this is with the full grants, we would end up an additional $124,306 to that assets as fund balance. So that's where it sits right now. A lot to change. So Jack.
What did you assume in the budget from these? Is there a certain amount that you assumed in there that would come
Correct.
through, or
So when the budgets were submitted right now for the draft budget, we have, the first one is a 3-year grant, 2-year grant, and the next one's a 5-year grant. So with that, we had the actual plan. We put the full amounts that we put out for the grant into the draft budget right now. And so it's balanced from that perspective. So once we get word on actually what's funded, then we'll go back in and we'll scale it appropriately.
that second one, what's that through? What organization is that through?
That is also through the USDA Forest Service, through the Urban and Community Forest, National Urban and Community Forestry Grants. And that support included things like Congress 2024, Congress 2026, support for the hub, support for convenings and workshops like Calumet Summit and Native-led Climate Summit. So it was really advancing a lot of the ideas of the Green Vision initiatives, but at a, taking it down to supporting the core work we would want to do in the next 6, or that was a 5-year grant. But so what was projected in the budget was just the 1-year advance proposal of that.
Great opportunity.
Yeah, and it includes obviously some important outreach and engagement with the Native American community and involved in many of the programs and offerings that we have. So again, it's got a lot of great, wonderful. So we're very hopeful. And even if it's a fraction of what we can do a lot of great work. And again, if we don't have this funding, I think we're prepped, ready to go. The steering committee is done. We'll keep looking at other opportunities. We've got to figure it out now, right? We know where we want to go. There's different ones. Yeah. Great. Any other questions on the consent on the budget? All right. So with that being said, those are the items on the consent agenda, and I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. So moved by Jerry. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Jack. All right. Any further discussion? Jack did. Jim's our secretary. So he's got to capture all this.
Second.
Awesome. All right, any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda is presented, motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. The consent agenda has been approved. Okay, we're going to turn it now over. We talked about our grant funding submittals, so we'll go past that. The Green Vision initiatives had their co-lead team meetings yesterday, and so I don't know who would like to speak to that. Jim, you can speak to this for us? Awesome.
Yeah, I gotta read my slide.
Yeah. Is it
So-
blurry? Oh, no.
So yesterday, most of the initiative leads met and convened together, which is one been a goal of Chicago Wilderness Alliance, to bring those folks together who are all out doing wonderful jobs, moving their initiative forward. And so we were really trying to just have them come into the same space, be feeling comfortable to be able to discuss where they're at, what they're doing, what they need. So we kind of went through and they all provided an update on the initiative, which I'm not going to go into because you're going to hear that later. But we did see some areas of collaboration that we can really think that would be wise to focus on now, which was growing of agriculture, increasing equitable access to nature, taking climate action, protecting healthy water, and there was others, but these kind of coalesced into some thinking across the line with current projects that are forming. We were also asked, I'm sort of a co-lead for the managing healthy landscape. What are we hopeful for? And so many people talked about their kids and having time spending with them out in nature. A lot of people were focusing on the Generation Z, this next generation carrying this aspect forward. We also had a climate workshop in Indiana that the Climate Action Plan for Nature is working on. And at that meeting, someone indicated that, during the pandemic, we saw that Los Angeles, all the air purified, it's cleared, you can see the canals at Venice where you can see down in it. So we actually saw that we could, if we really wanted to, revert climate change impacts on this earth. We did it. And so that was a hopeful thing. The other thing is they were very grateful that each other, was doing work and helping out. They were really feeling great. And they also felt hopeful for the space that's being allowed for them to bring forward their ideas. The other thing that they talked about is right now most of our initiative leads are out there. They have a small group of people working on the initiatives, but we really need more people to step up to the plate and collaborate with these initiatives. I know that managing healthy landscapes has 10 different work streams, and the people that are working on it just can't manage all 10 of those work streams. Now we either could say we need more people to do those, or we prioritize those work streams and we focus on one or two is another way to think about it. But there is this is kind of a call out to all of our partners to think about, can you commit some of your staff to Chicago Wilderness? Because I think it's really important that we do that. And we also provide assistance and support to those initiative leads. And one of the things that we talked about was providing stipends for some of them. That'll go a long way for it. And so we're also looking for a co-lead from Protecting Healthy Water initiative. And then also, like I said, there's 10 work streams that the Managing Healthy Landscapes came up with that they need assistance with. And so, there's these common themes and needs, this need for capacity. How can Chicago, we're a volunteer organization, so we need our partners to step up and think, can you commit some staff time to this effort? And we really think it's important because there is going to be a lot of funding that's coming down for strategy by 30 by 30, federal dollars for infrastructure. And, some of us need to kind of think outside the box. An infrastructure grant could fund something that's a nature-based solution tied up with the railroad improvement, roadways, green buildings. And so we really want to think about those opportunities. And then, we talked about the the stipends to be an incentive for them. And so it was very good. You know, they also thought about the other thing that was kind of on their mind is, you know, we have seen some rather drastic impacts on climate change. This is Milwaukee, very the California smoke or Canada smoke. And then these are all hottest years on recent record, and all those are in the 2000s. So those are like the 10 top years of highest temperatures, and they're all in the 2000s. So this kind of information is out there, and it's like it's you know, anybody that walked outside with a really bad air day, it was literally in your face. And so we're thinking that that's a good sign that, you know, climate change is not only here, real, but it's starting to impact us. So I don't know if anybody else that was at the meeting had any comments or would like to speak to it, but it was good first meeting, and we're going to be meeting that group again in October. So any questions or any comments from people that attended that meeting? Say a little bit about what working with the initiative look like for a foundation, what the kind of commitment that is. So I'll give an example. You know, today we approved the training requirements for the Midwest Ecological Prescription Burn training. So Cook County, Lake County, the volunteer training people have been working on trying to get that assembled. So there's a group of people that are working on that effort. There's a group of people working on updating the community wildfire protection plan, which means that there's money that could be sought from the federal Forest Service once we have that plan updated. Another aspect is the cooperative weed management area. We need someone to think about that. Everybody knows that invasive species are a critical issue. And if we could get a cooperative weed management area for the Chicago Wilderness region, again, we would get the ability to go for federal funds. A lot of it is attending meetings, thinking about those initiatives, providing input, providing work, you know, saying, hey, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to research it. But it's all within that the initiative team leads. There's typically 2 co-chairs that lead, but it's tying into those things. So, you know, from the Friends of the Nature Reserves, certainly protecting land and acquiring land are 2 big initiatives that are out there that you could plug into. So
we'll go through a little bit more about the goal team initiatives later. So you might give a better sense.
Right.
Typically, the teams meet quarterly on a quarterly Zoom schedule. And maybe they have a subcommittee meeting that is either monthly or more regularly. The hub team meets once a month or twice a month on Fridays so there are different schedules for different Green Vision Initiative teams, but those are all posted on the website, and I'd be happy to talk further with people about who to connect with if they have a specific area of interest and what the meeting schedule is for that team.
The other thing I would say is that in the packet today, we approved the position description. Thank you, Jim, and with great job on supporting, but we create a position description for the co-leads because their commitment, they're leading, a little bit more time goes into those leadership roles. The next piece of the spin off to just a general to the questions, how much time does it take for my organization to get involved? And so if you take a look at the regular meeting schedules, it's going to vary by group to group and what you're able to get. So I think even if you just do a test pilot, hop on a meeting, see what it's like, and to me, typically you'll see where your interests are, and you'll find a spot. But everyone's welcome. You can do one, you can do many, you know, just whatever you feel your interest in, what's going to help, you know, not only to yourself, it's beneficial to you, but your organization and your organization. Jim, thank you so much for the coordinating meeting. It's glad to see those groups coming together. We felt that it was really important that those groups have the opportunity to synchronize. They still meet up with the steering committee as well and to the council. We just want to make sure that we have good communication going on among all our groups. All right, the next is I believe we have Dr. Jordan Force of Nature and Excellence Ecological Restoration Program. So Catherine or Gloria?
Gloria was not able to make it today. So I wanted to reiterate that we're accepting application nominations for the Force of Nature Awards. There's a link to more information on our website, and there should be a link in the agenda for the meeting packet. But it's a really great opportunity to recognize the programs, the people, and the work that's being done across the Chicago Wilderness region. Nominations are due on September 13th, and then the committee will come together and make recommendations to the steering committee. And we'll come together on November 30th at a place to be determined. So if anybody wants to host the Chicago Wilderness Member Appreciation event this year, we'd love to come together and celebrate the Force of Nature Award winners, as well as the Excellence in Ecological Restoration program awardees. And I know that Ralph is on. He can talk about that further in a minute. But we are looking forward to both celebrating our partners as well as these extraordinary sites and programs and individuals. So that link is in the packet, and it will also can be found on our website. So if you have any ideas, we would love to get so many nominations this year that that we don't know what to do with it. So think about who you might want to nominate. Here are just the guidelines very quickly, but the more details can be found on the website. Okay, Ralph, I'll turn it over to you. If you're still with us.
I am still here. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
I couldn't get my microphone on in time. So good morning again, everyone. We are in the process of initiating our field surveys for the EERP program. We had a couple of additional commissioners on the council resign. And so we have a couple of openings, and we are seeking nominations from 2 to 4 people. 2 would be kind of our minimum, but we can handle up to 4. So the process, and we talked about this before, the duties of a commissioner are essentially to review applications once they are submitted, and then conduct field visits just for verification and have conversation with the applicants. The chairs of the commission or chair will handle a lot of the I guess the paperwork or the administrative side of things, and of course they can share those duties with other members. So if you are interested in becoming a commissioner on EERP, we would love to have you apply. We do have a very short application process that Laura is going to share with the group afterwards. So yeah, I should say also, the work for the commission at this point in time is pretty much set for the 2023 season. And so if you decide that you want to participate, while you may be engaged in trying to set up some roundtable discussions in 2024, we will not actually be receiving any applications in 2024 because it is a biannual program. So it would be 2025 where you would be committing yourself to some field visits. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. They do great work as the Force of Nature Awards crew. It's a great opportunity, another way to be involved. I just want to highlight just for us a few of the priorities. So last year, the Chicago Wilderness Alliance engaged not only with Full Bison, but with other communications team to help us with our branding, our messaging, and to give recommendations to us that they felt we should be taking and putting into action. And so what the steering committee has done is identified, they've reviewed, we've moved forward right out of the gates, right before Congress, when this was all launched with our new branding. Your tables here, you have some of the new branding elements as well. We went ahead and updated our current website the best we could with the tools that we had and just with our general messaging. So we put a lot into action, but there's still work to be done. And so the steering committee has prioritized for the next 18 months, 3 items that we feel are very important. And then once these are done, then we can kind of go to the next ones and work through. So first would be to continue to develop our partnerships, our prospecting, to re-engaging and involving in ongoing strategy. So for those that are here for the first time, you know, what is Chicago Wilderness Alliance? It's this organic organizational structure that has many ways. And so what does it look like? It's not an association, you know, you're a membership, it's not driven by staff. And so really to understand kind of how we work, it's through that volunteer people power and capacity of organizations. And so we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome, that we're engaging, that any barriers to participation, we're able to play and get more involved with this movement, because the Alliance has a lot of power. We're all working together, a lot of good things are done. And as you saw on Jim's slide, we have some real big issues here to kind of work together. So that's priority number 1. Second would be to redesign the Chicago Wilderness Alliance website, developing an RFP, identifying resources, et cetera, how to do that. So at least to get the RFP done, and then we'll be looking for feedback of how best to proceed on that. And then lastly, we need to expanding opportunities to partners to participate, you know, clarifying different roles and responsibilities, expectations, like we've done with the leads to understand the stipends, et cetera, and just so everybody can kind of coordinate how this alliance works. So those are our top 3, which again, if you have any interest or within your organization, have communications people or technology people that are willing to kind of join efforts, we would love to have us. Anybody else from the steering committee want to highlight this? There being none, that is basically an update of where we're at. So now we're going to move into the Green Vision Initiative teams. And through the work of Old Bison, we've created, there is available, everything's on our website. You can link in and take a look at it's in your packet, but there are, and on Google Docs, each team has basically a place where they report out, update what initiatives, what they're focusing on, how things are happening. There's live meeting minutes, so you can catch up with what's going on. So what we want to today, though, versus reading through each of the individual slides, is ask our GVI leads if you would just give an update to the group. So please, what are the initiatives you're focused on? What's up and coming? And this is your time. So we'll start off with managing healthy landscapes.
Patty, do you want to jump in here?
Sure. Just a kind of a quick update. Jim already alluded to some of the things that are going on. For example, he talked about the community wildfire protection plan. That is something that Cook County folks are taking the lead on. We do have a couple of consultants who are on board who are working on redrafting or updating that plan. It is a plan kind of across the region. So the consultants and the folks from Cook County will be reaching out to land managers across the region, kind of individually, to set up individual meetings to discuss kind of maybe how that plan applies to your particular properties, areas that you manage, et cetera. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks to the steering committee for approving the training updates that we've been talking about. This is a process to allow new trainers to coordinate and hold the Midwest prescribed burn training. That's a really important thing for us to be able to expand our capacity for burning across the region. We are still kind of working slowly towards creating a cooperative weed management area for the Chicago Wilderness Alliance region, kind of slow going. That is one of the places where I think there's a lot of excitement about doing it, but capacity is really strained for the people who want to be involved with this. So if there are folks out there that you know of who might be a good fit for helping us to coordinate getting this particular initiative off the ground, please do reach out and let me know. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Melissa Kustik from the Chicago Region Trees Initiative. She has stepped up to really kind of reinvigorate the urban forestry subgroup of the Managing Healthy Landscapes initiative. She had her latest meeting on June 27th. I don't have any particular updates from that, but hopefully it will the next time we meet. And then finally, I just want to let everyone know that the next Healthy Landscapes meeting is going to be next week. Let me just check the calendar to give you the exact time. It'll be Tuesday, July 25th, starting at 9:30. It is virtual, so you can join us from wherever you happen to be that day. Thanks.
Thank you. Daniel, are you still with us? Oh gosh, this is long. Are you still with us to give a quick Growing with Agriculture update?
Yes, I am. So thanks, everybody. And I'm presenting on behalf of myself and Tim Brennan, who's my co-lead on the CW Ag team. Tim's with the Farm Foundation. And we do have a couple of big things kind of in the works right now. First and foremost, our upcoming Kane County Field Day. If you remember last year, we held an inaugural Chicago Wilderness Field Day in Will County. That was very successful, very well attended, where we got to check in on different farms, growing different things, using different regenerative techniques, and really for the first time, bringing together CW partners around agriculture. We've got another one planned this year in August. I believe it's August 15th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Laura. I know you just sent out that invitation yesterday, but we only have room for about 50 people. So I would encourage folks to find that email. Should also be available on the CW website and register. We have room for about 50 people. We expect to sell out this year like we did last year. And we're really excited about bringing this to Kane County. As we know, Kane County is one of the more innovative counties within CW with regards to agriculture and the diversity of things that are grown and the techniques and the size of the operations, and there's grazing happening. And so it should be really exciting and building off of the success from our 2022 Field Day. We also have two other major kind of veins of the work happening right now around our subcommittees. So we have an infrastructure and a biodiversity subcommittee. Currently, the infrastructure subcommittee is grappling with the Piatone Airport conversation, controversy, proposal, whatever you want to call it. But we know that this is something that's been coming up for decades now at this point, and it's now the conversation has revived itself again. We know that Governor Pritzker is not too excited about throwing his support behind this project. And because of that, our my co-lead, Tim Brennan, again from the Farm Foundation, gave a presentation back in June at the Will County board meeting to discuss, Tim owns a farm not too far from the Piatone Airport site. And he discussed kind of through his perspective, why this would not be a good idea for Will County, but then also as the CW Ag team described some of the work that we're doing and gave a compelling argument for the board to consider alternative land use proposals, including what Tim discussed during his presentation, kind of like a regenerative agriculture incubator kind of a space where, there's a lot of land out there. And wouldn't it be great to prioritize working with new farmers, non-traditional farmers, farmers of color, farmers trying out new techniques and new crops. And while he didn't get necessarily approval for that, he basically was told to, that the folks were interested and to try to put together a proposal outlining the things that he's talking about. So we're really excited about that. And we've been holding a few conversations with folks interested in the Piatone Airport discussion to help, craft that compelling alternative proposal. So definitely reach out to Tim or myself if you're interested in that. And then finally, just our biodiversity subcommittee has been talking for the last month or two about this idea, which, you know, isn't necessarily a new idea, but using agricultural land to help grow seeds for restorations. And so we know with climate change, with rare and uncommon species, there are a whole host of difficulties. Most importantly, probably just cost in securing the species that we want at the densities that we want for all of the restoration that's happening. And so we've started a conversation with some folks around what that could look like. We know a lot of the forest preserve districts own agricultural lands. That might be a good place to pilot some of these projects. Farm Foundation, again, has recently purchased a farm in Libertyville that they'll be using as kind of like a headquarters for them, where they will be engaging folks around agriculture from literally around the world as they come to Chicago. And they would love to pilot some of that on their property, which is adjacent to some Lake County Forest Preserve property as well. So we connected on yesterday's co-chair confab around that, and we'll be having some conversations soon around some potential there. And so there's a lot happening with the ag team. Just to remind folks, we meet in the even numbered months. So up in August, we'll have our full team meeting, and in the odd numbered months is when we peel off and do our subcommittee work. So always looking for more people to jump on board and to lend their expertise and energy towards moving some of these initiatives forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have anyone with the prioritizing green infrastructure on the call, do we? I don't think, oh, Lindsay is here today in person.
Yeah, personally, I'm not familiar with.
Okay. So Iris Caldwell and Caroline Hernandez have been leading the Growing Chicago Habitat Initiative, which is where the current energy for prioritizing green infrastructure lies. And they have been meeting with the primarily transportation and energy sector to discuss opportunities for growing restoration work along these corridors, and have received some funding to advance these conversations through workshops, and are going to be continuing this work to sort of prioritize through the hub and the mapping process where additional resources lie. And that work will continue, and you'll probably be invited to some of their additional workshops as they move this along. And but they're doing good work, and the goal would be then to be able to expand this further across the prioritizing green infrastructure goal to include other areas such as industrial land, corporate campuses, and watersheds as municipal planning as we evolve. But they're continuing their work specifically targeted on the transportation and energy sector corridors at this time, and are also working with Mark. I think Mark Johnson's not on the call, but working with Mark to identify the mapping needs to be able to prioritize this work. Let's see. Kathy, I don't think was able to join us. The Protecting Landscapes for Biodiversity Conservation, they came together for a land trust confab. Was anybody in this room here? I think there may have been. Jim was there. You want to give a recap of that, Jim, quickly? And
sure. So what we were doing was just finding out how land trusts are involved in the acquisition of properties in the Chicago region, and how we can work together. How we can link with the hub. The hub is a great tool for helping us decide what our priorities in the region. And the hub, if you haven't visited it, I would encourage you, because there's a lot of good data in there, both about biological conditions, but also human conditions and climate conditions. And there's some really good maps that show areas like urban tree canyon cover, areas of heat islands. All these things are starting to be brought together and mixed with the biological data. And so that is providing us with a really good way forward. A lot of it was just finding out what land trusts are doing. You know, a couple of them have been really active. You know, we know Open Lands has been playing a big role in many ways. As we attack the land conservancy of McHenry County, purchased a big piece of property. The McHenry County Land Foundation acquired a big piece of property. Citizens Conservation acquired a big property, probably added almost 1,000 acres to protected lands in McHenry County. And that's happening all across the region in Wisconsin and Indiana. And so we just wanted to bring those folks together to try to find a commonality. And it's really about trying to see if we can use the hub to help us think about how we prioritize things. A couple of things that were mentioned was the Southeast Cook County Land Acquisition Plan. If you're not familiar with that, they hired a couple of consultants to reach out to the community and find out what the community wanted for acquisition purposes. So we're thinking that that's a really good project study that we could build off of. I think other people have done it. Open Land, the Land Trust Alliance, working with the French Chicago River, created a tool to look at the Chicago River and look at the factors and the interactive map. It's kind of like a specialized PID. You know, Kane County has done its own green infrastructure, Lake County, McHenry County, there's the county one. And so we're just trying to think about how land trust fit into that. And so it was a very good meeting. Many land trusts came, so it was well represented. You know, and so I think there was a lot of good things that came out of that. Thinking about how the land trust can work with other land acquisition agencies to fill in the gaps, or actually, you know, in the case of McHenry County, you have purchased a significant amount of land. So how can we protect those remaining pieces? We also talked about the bellboat prairies that are out there. We want to try to work on those. I think the Brents and the Illinois Nature Preserve is trying to figure out, you know, where are those last months Illinois Natural Area Inventory sites that are not protected currently, and trying to find out how we could protect those, because those are really critical landscapes that we need to protect. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, and so they'll be following up with a cafe, a Chicago Wilderness virtual cafe on August 24th. And there's more information about that in our website, and we'll be coming through the newsletter as well. But to learn more and then kind of have a deeper dive into the topic, please join us. It's a 1-hour virtual meeting on the 24th of August. So great. Moving along. We don't have anyone here from the Increasing Equitable Access to Nature team. They did have their meeting in May and have revised their goals and strategies to be a little bit more achievable and realistic. There was a JEDI audit, which many of you submitted information to sort of compile the resources that all of our organizations and institutions have developed and are looking at a way to really spotlight and promote those really high quality resources throughout the region, and invite you know, the adoption by, you know, if there was a great resource that was adopted. I think that they mentioned spotlighted one that was developed by McHenry County on LGBTQ inclusion, that could be serving as a model for other organizations to adopt themselves. And so those new updated goals and objectives are what they're going to be focusing on. There's an accessibility piece for all of the work that's included, both in terms of technical accessibility, but also accessibility on our lands and trails and public spaces. And we will be, hopefully, if we are successful in receiving the IDNR grant, we are going to repeat our JEDI training series, and all partner institutions are welcome to use these trainings as both a basic foundational JEDI workshop training, but then an advanced training that will, you know, just as we're on this continuum of learning how to do our work better and be more inclusive, that we will have tools and resources available to us for all of our organizations So when you see the announcement about that, hopefully, please join your staff. All of your staff is welcome to attend. We're not limited by numbers, and we hope that you would invite all of your people to join us for those trainings. So.
This will be with a different presenter. So we did with Big City Conservation, this series, the Jedi working group, they've been looking for another presenter to have a different perspective, different voices, present the material.
Yes, yeah, we've identified someone, and so if we're successful, we will have a series of 5 workshops. Hopefully, the first one starting in late fall and then continuing into the spring. So just keep an eye out for that. Taking climate action. Beth, I don't know if you were comfortable. I know you spoke with Ted this morning, but if you want to say a few words, there are several different strands of work that's being advanced. The first is the update of the climate action plan for nature, and we're rebranding this as a climate action plan for people and nature. And Kristen Voorhees has been hired by the Field Museum to create this strategy and this plan moving forward. And the intention is that she will hold a series of workshops. The first one was mentioned was in Indiana, and there's work to develop the next round of workshops, with one of the ideas being in the Peatone area, another just as the hub, and some of those metrics were being identified to develop where are those areas that we need to go and engage in the community, to listen to the community, to find out what needs to be included in this updated plan. And so you'll probably be hearing from Kristen as she's continuing her work. And Beth, do you want to jump in at this point and talk about the work with the climate committee? She may not be with us anymore. So they are continuing to engage with other members and partners and identify how they can work across the teams, because as we know, climate is integrated with all of the managing healthy landscapes, protecting land, protecting healthy waters. So Ted and Beth and others have been working to identify where are those areas of intersection and how they can work together on collaborating with those teams. And Ted has been working primarily with C4, which is a collaboration in the western suburbs area based out of Riverside, and helping to advance some of the community partnership building work that they're doing, including emerging professionals. Tomorrow, he's hosting a green landscaping workshop with them to discuss electric landscaping opportunities for municipalities. And so I think I shared this already, but I will probably send another email reminder tomorrow or tonight about that. So if anybody wants to listen in on that town hall, it would be an opportunity to learn more about the work that's happening there. And protecting healthy waters, as Jim mentioned, they are looking at strategies. And if you want to say a few words about that, Jim, I think they're looking at strategies to develop a watershed index to map the region, but
yeah, so what they've been looking at is the US EPA Healthy Watershed Index. It's something that the USGS keeps updated. They did the first index in 2017, and then they updated it in 2021. And it's our understanding that index will be continued to be updated on a 5-year basis. It provides a significant GIS desktop analysis of the status of watersheds in the region. At the last campaign we had with the quality, we invited folks from Wisconsin who have taken the index a step down and set it up for Wisconsin, and then Wisconsin folks took that out to their neighbors and said, here's this information. What do you think is the most pressing issue in your watershed? And that's how they identify priorities in the watershed, instead of using the index, which does rate the health of the watershed and the vulnerability of the watershed. I look at those indexes, and when you look at the stream names, you can see that it's kind of hitting pretty much right out of the money, listing the ones that are good and listing the ones that are bad. What we want to try to do with the Protecting Healthy Water initiative is to think about what are some of the key indicators there that we can use to put out a dashboard and say, hey, let's look over a long time and use 5 indicators instead of, there's a lot of indicators in the index. And so we want to try to zoom in on a couple of important ones. One for where is the quality going on, how this is going to humans and human health, water availability, and water quality. So we're trying to wade through that. Then there's also the aspect that we brought up yesterday at the coordinating group was, PERC, sewer pack, CMAP, the MWRP, which is the Metropolitan Water Recommendation District, and some other folks have looked at regional priorities for aquatic resources. And we think it's a really good idea to tap into those, see what is, similar across our region, and try to help them focus on some of the priorities that were identified with plans. Because those folks are, again, they're monitoring things, they're looking at things, they're updating their plans every 5 to 10 years. And we just think it's a good resource to use. So we're trying to get back together with a small team. We get with the big team, we don't get much decisions to make. And so there's a meeting coming up that later this fall that we will think about that. Any questions?
Thank you. Mark, are you available to give a quick hub update?
Sure. The hub group continues to meet every other week with pretty good participation. And I would just say, if anybody, you or any staff find engaging in the work of the hub interesting or useful, we would certainly welcome that. Mark is, as a lot of you know, has done a lot of really great thinking on a lot of support for the other teams. We just heard initiative 3, growing Chicago habitat, some prioritization pieces there, and hearing about the initiative 4, again, how some of the hub tools could help with prioritization. We saw on initiative 6, the climate work, how to activate the hub to support the climate work. And even just now, some of the EPA updates to index and so forth, how to capture that. I think in general, where the hub is going is to try to, and I would encourage you all to use it. And some of the things you see on this sheet here are just about enhancing usability and getting the word out. But when you get in there, I think you'll find that there are some helpful tools. As an example, Amy Heldman, and this was just mentioned before from Friends of the River, using a lot of the things that are in the hub, has created a map of Chicago wilderness watershed planning, green infrastructure planning, and has made a data layer out of that I think will be added shortly to the hub. So there's usefulness to it, but in general, I think we're trying to move towards how to use it as a prioritization tool. And I think that's where the thrust of a lot of the requests on these grant proposals goes, to keep the basic work going. And again, the hub is a great place for interns to come and engage. And there's some really promising developments in that regard with DePaul. But that can help free Mark from some of the mechanical things that he does to keep the hub updated and refreshed and so forth. Let somebody else do that so that he can lean into where this prioritization is going with each of the initiative teams. And to that end, he's really thinking hard these days about refining the tools that lie behind the green infrastructure vision, the connectivity planning tools. Really thinking hard with the Initiative 3 and with some of the other teams about prioritization tools and where to acquire, where to manage, all the big questions, and how can we best get this hub supporting those conversations. So maybe this is leading in the general direction down the road of good, useful updates to those existing green infrastructure visioning tools that we have. So I think that's where we're really headed in the next year or two with this work. Happy to answer any questions, but that's what I got.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. All right, for the group and for those and partners that are here, any questions or any thoughts on, you said this was going to be the year of action. You can see from all the highlights, there's a lot of activity that is taking place. Great movement happening. So thank you, everyone. Any thoughts, ideas, questions? Definitely go out to the hub. It's got all the details. Find your way around, also to the Alliance's website. We talked about this before. This is just a call out. Nominations are currently open for position on the steering committee. Based on our analysis and those that are repeats and moving from the officer position down to an at-large, it looks as if we have one open seat for treasurer, and that would be seated election this fall, with being seated with the remainder in 2024. However, things do change, and so we do want to hear from you. So if there's an interest in serving or leading, or you know of someone, advance their name forward. There's a lot of opportunities, whether it be on the steering committee or whether it be a co-lead for a GDI or another team, whatever capacity. But so nominations are open. You can go through the link that's in your packet, go on the website. It was in the last e-news. We'll send it around. It just is very simple. Just ask you to fill it out. You can submit yourself. You don't need to have somebody nominate you. You can nominate somebody else and we'll talk with them. The treasurer position, a lot of the work, as I said, it's not if you love numbers, but really Friends of the Forest Preserve does all of our work for us. It's just a matter of keeping up with but it's a really important position. You have to sign up all the purchasing that comes through, and so there's some activity for that position. That would be great. Okay, any questions about that? All right, moving on, Laura.
Okay, we've covered this already, but I want to reiterate how wonderful the Will County Field Day was last year and invite you all to attend the Kane County Farm Field Day on August 15th. Registration, and there are scholarships for those who don't, who no questions asked, just you can fill out the form and receive a scholarship for that event. We have 2 cafes coming up. Tomorrow is the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative Engagement for Action Plan. John Holland and Megan Gavin are leading that. It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. And as I mentioned, our Protecting Healthy Landscapes Conservation Initiative and for landowners is on August 24th. Yeah.
What's the focus of the GRI?
It is an engagement plan, but then also some of the prioritization of their funding initiatives. And so I can give you a longer description, but he just talk a little bit about what their call is, and then get some feedback on the engagement plan. Don Howland, USCPA, yeah, and Megan Gavin. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's it. Our next meeting is October 18th. And it's probably virtual again at 9:30. Any questions? And I think we were hoping that we would wrap up early, so Gary might have a chance to give us a preview of the presentation. And
well, before we get to that, Laura, just
okay.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So the other thing I just wanted to, we have Luciana on the call, one of our interns now, and so she's not present with us here to introduce, but Oceana's been helping us. We've had this the second intern to the Alliance, which has been great. So we do appreciate that effort. The other thing is opportunity for partners. So any announcements or anything that's going on in your organization that would help or you want to share, showcase, now's the opportunity for that. So anybody online or here has any updates?
I just want to, that's an Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and Chicago Wilderness or Chicago Wilderness Alliance co-partnership, right, on that internship?
Yes, yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. And Oceana, if you want to say a few words, it's been wonderful to have you with us this summer. And I know that she's been benefiting from a lot of the advanced trainings and the meetings that have been happening through Illinois Indiana Sea Grant.
Oh yeah. They give like a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of interns. Like I've gotten to meet like a lot of people in the professional developments and other things they do to bring us together. So we're all like community engaged interns, and they give us like a lot of resources and professional development to help us like figure out more about our careers and stuff at the early stages, as a lot of us are like undergraduate students, or I mean, I think there are graduate students as well. So it's been great. I got to work with the Chicago Wilderness Alliance. Everybody's working with different people, so that's kind of how it works.
Thank you. We've been thrilled.
And that support and assistance. All right, anybody else? Any partner updates?
I want to mention for AB, couldn't make it on behalf of Fred, but we're working to do tours as part of that nature weekend in August. So if you have any sites or stewards at sites that want to give a tour of a nature preserve as part of that celebration system, contact me and I'll pass it along to Amy, and Amy is working to get those set up.
Oh, that's great.
It's a fun opportunity. A good chance to highlight what it's all.
Thanks for sharing, Jared.
Kind of related, and I know Laura sent out a notice, I think, to all of us about the Chicago Humanities Festival, which will be this fall and then also in the spring. And they have two kind of primary focuses for this year's themes. One is AI, and the other was going to be climate. And as I spoke to them, I said, we've not only climate and biodiversity and other connected. And so they're working on various programs and so forth. But we spoke with Laura, and she was very helpful in thinking through how all of us could have a parallel piece. So all of their literature, their website, and so forth, would introduce people to rare nature, wonderful nature here in the Chicago Wilderness, Forest State region. So I think, Laura, you sent out, a notice. So if you're already planning a tour or something, or you could put together a special event, maybe it's a bird walk or whatever it may be. But it's a great way, I think, to reach a broader and more diverse audience. Not to say that some people who go to the Humanities Festival don't care about nature, of course they do, but they might be more involved in, social justice or literature, history or whatever. And so I think it's just a great way to showcase Chicago Wilderness and what we have to offer, both for this fall and then also next spring. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that. Think creatively, not to create a lot of work, extra work, but if there are things already kind of planned or easy to do, introduce people to your sites. It's just, I think, a great opportunity. So just wanted to mention that. And thanks, Laura. for all
No,
your
thank you.
help
Thank you,
with that
Jerry,
together.
for bringing that up. And there is a form that is active, and that form is linked through the last newsletter. And if you haven't received it, if you don't receive our newsletter, please contact me. I'd be happy to share it. Just to collect the information about the opportunities that you have already formed.
And again, the focus on climate, we've encouraged them to really focus on nature-based solutions. We hear so much, and it's so important about transportation, energy, built environment, but we hear almost nothing about nature-based solutions. So this is a great chance to showcase that and to link it to the other existential crisis we have, which is loss of biodiversity. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief, all together,
Good.
outreach to the Planet Act National Wildlife Refuge Board, I do programs you probably probably seen that Monarchs and Margaritas.
Not enough.
Very fun through the years, but it's a really nice program. It ties in biodiversity, North American conservation from Canada down to Central Mexico. Monarchs migrate down to Central Mexico next to where tequila is made. So it ties in very nicely, I think, North American conservation, biodiversity, agricultural, chemical, open space protection, all that stuff. So
And fun.
it's fun. The first time I did it was a Sunday afternoon with margarita machine. Really good. Fun. And the more they drank, the better my program got. But as part of your group that you're involved in, or, professionally, personally, you guys are looking for a speaker sometimes, I'm usually available. And it's fun, but it's also a great message that ties in, and eventually you get to add that the value of space for healthy ecosystems and happy kids and all of that. So it's a nice program, kind of a compost pile stuff, my life, all that stuff through the years. So it's available here and there. It's free, or we do accept donations from Fort Hackney Bank, but if you guys are planning events, evenings, weekends, whatever it might be, or not church groups, all that. So think about that.
Anyone else? Anyone online? I will say one of the other things that just is in the horizon, and again, everybody be thinking about, when on the grant submittal, we normally do our conservation congress every other year. We had our last one very successful, and so there's been discussion on the work, and Mark and team submitted the budget can probably speak to, but the Calumet Summit and somehow focusing on building our congress with some synergy is part of that, or connecting it together in some fashion, and also again regionally trying to relocate. We've been at the UIC forum, trying to find another location and venue to provide that. So we will be looking for planning team members and to get engaged with that.
Do you want to say a few words about Congress, Mark? Or I think Victoria?
I'm happy to let Mark handle this.
I was just gonna say that about you. We've had some really wonderful Calumet summits, as they've been called, going actually back to 2001, 2006, 2010, 13, 15, and it's been now folks who are starting to say, hey, when are we going to have another one? And I would also, along with that, one of the reasons for that is the Calumet Land Conservation Partnership, which is a group of 9 entities, are just these days releasing a sort of coordinated report that aligns their goals and objectives in the region. There's a number of other really good reasons to have a Calumet Summit, but it felt like there's so much that the Calumet partners have learned from the Chicago Wilderness Alliance in general, and vice versa. Great conversations happening around ag, green infrastructure, community engagement, and so forth. So it just felt like a really good idea to take, and with Congress, re-examining after its years of UIC experience, how it might do it differently. We were having a really productive conversation about lining up Congress and the summit, and then thinking of maybe future Congresses going to another site of interest in the region, like, for example, Illinois Beach State Park, which I should visit someday.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, with that, we are at the end of this portion of our meeting, and then we would adjourn. We have a networking lunch and then a tour this afternoon. And speaking, we want to highlight so we don't lose everybody. We hope that we stay engaged.
something we should be really proud of. Next one. And for the Ramsar designation, there's 9 different criteria that need to be, that can be met to qualify as a Ramsar designation. And the Chewacki Prairie, Illinois Beach Lake Plain met 4 of the 9 criteria, which would be pretty significant. It contains rare representative wetland type, supports vulnerable or critically endangered species, and supports plant animal populations of importance for regional biodiversity, and also supports them at a critical life stage. Excuse me, do you know by chance how many Ramsar sites there are in the US? I know there, of course, are numbers, but not
It's
that
like,
many, right?
I think last time I checked, there's like 64.
Wow.
And then it's, I think, almost 300 internationally. So it's, but there's not a whole lot in the Midwest. Right. A lot of coastal wetlands and areas like that. Like, I want to say there's like 3 in Illinois and like 2 others in Wisconsin. And to kind of highlight the protection of this unique landscape, this was a lot of the work of Debbie Maurer, who used to work for Lake County Forest Preserve, has since moved on to the Nature Conservancy. But this was her grand vision to form this formal partnership to work jointly together to protect this unique ecological landscape. So we formalized agreements with several different entities, 14 different partners via memorandum of understanding or intergovernmental agreements to kind of work jointly to protect this unique ecological landscape. So some of those include the Chewacki Prairie Preservation Fund. We have Dana here from that. So we have a lot of organizations in this room represented or online of this partnership. City of Waukegan, Exelon Zion Solutions, Friends of Illinois Beach, Don over there. It's been a great partner. Illinois DNR, obviously, the Lake County Forest Preserve District, the Health Department, Nature Conservancy, University of Wisconsin Parkside, Village of Pleasant Prairie and Winthrop Harbor, Waukegan Park District, Wisconsin DNR, and the Zion Park District. So you can imagine getting all these people to sign on to formal agreements from different areas is it could be quite challenging, but it's a kind of a unique opportunity to get everyone in an agreement. And much like Chicago Wilderness Alliance, this is an alliance of people dedicating their work time throughout their day to jointly work together to address a lot of these issues. And so kind of the goals that were provided the framework for this partnership was to work jointly to secure funding, coordinate habitat management efforts, and share information and resources. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few examples of how that's worked. So securing grant funding, that is largely what holds this partnership together. So without funding, the partnership would fall together. We've been extremely successful. The Preservation Foundation of the Lake County Forest Preserves has acted as the fiscal agent for this partnership largely, and we've secured over $14 million of funding. And what's kind of even more impressive is we've been able to leverage this really successfully. So every dollar we've gotten that we've invested locally, we've turned that into almost $3.50 of outside funding. So we've really been able to leverage our internal dollars and get outside funding to support a lot of our conservation initiatives. And that's led, like a lot of this grant work has done coordinating management efforts. We've been able to do like large scale weed clearing projects. So this is a big issue addressing like buckthorn or this habitat preservation. So we're able to like act as a fiscal agent, put out bids, request for quotes for large scale weed clearing projects across the entirety of the lake plain, and not just focused on individual properties. By doing that, these projects are larger when we can't see economy of scale. So it can be much cheaper to bid out these contracts, knowing that there's 800 acres of clearing rather than 100. So we're able to like save some money and distribute those contractors across the entirety of the lake plain, regardless of who actually owns the property. Excellent. These are just some examples of some of the clearing areas that we've done. You see a large scale, a lot of that land is owned by Illinois State Park. We have also Spring Bluff Nature Reserve and up in Wisconsin, Chewacki Prairie. So we're able to deploy contractors across the entirety of the lake. And there's some more examples of maps. One of the other kind of unique aspects is we're able to
deploy prescribed burn crews to have larger burn plots. So an example of this, we've been working with Wisconsin DNR, Trucking Prairie Preservation Fund, kind of combined burn crews to do larger burns. We actually burned across the state lines. You guys imagine putting burn plans together to be quite complicated and getting all the approvals and everything. So that was a pretty unique thing to be able to do, is make these like larger burn units and disregard actual geopolitical boundaries. We also been able to do large scale cattail control by deploying things like the Marshmaster. We actually did aerial application for cattail control. Again, another economy of scale by contracting it out across the lake plain and not just focused on individual parcels and individual landowners. And then the big thing I work on is the Blandings turtle. This is a really good example. Wildlife ecology knows no boundaries. We've been working on collecting large scale demographic data on the most significant populations of Blandings turtles out in the world. And much like anything else, they don't know boundaries either. So we have lots of turtles with transmitters. We do head starting. We protect nests. We do raccoon removals. And we track these turtles. A lot of females will stay on forest preserve property in Illinois, and when they go to nest, they go up to Wisconsin. That's good for a large proportion of the turtles we actually track. So having this formal agreement in place allows us to go up in Wisconsin, track the turtle, and still do good conservation work regardless of where we are in this lake plain landscape. And then probably the biggest and kind of most impressive way we've kind of used this partnership is to deploy an invasive plant strength team. So this is the concept that Debbie Bauer came up with, was that we could hire a contractor to rapidly identify and treat a list of priority invasive plant species across the lake plain and leverage all of those resources. So we've gotten funding from GLRI, Sustainable Plains, to kind of target 18 new plant species, deploy multiple crews throughout the summer months to kind of really target these herbaceous plant species. And it's been a really good model that they started deploying in other areas. We're able to get really good rates and throughout the year treat different species at different times. So it's been a really successful goal. We've been running this invasive plant strike team for about 12 years in a row now, and we're looking to secure funding that for the future for this. And one of the neat things is we work with a lot of the friends groups, so Friends of Illinois Beach, or Friends of Chihuahua Prairie, or Chihuahua Prairie Preservation Fund, that any volunteer monitor can actually use Survey 123, map out invasive plant populations. And through field maps, the contractor gets updated list of where these priority invasive plants are, so they can go out and directly treat those. So it's a really neat model where we can rapidly detect, deploy strike teams that treat them before they become even more problematic. This is just some examples of how that technology works. I need to just skip through this. But into the future, one of the things we quickly realized, and that's the struggle with any alliance or kind of group or partnership here, is that we all have jobs to do throughout the day. And how do we ensure that this partnership continues and we're able to get more funding, do more good work? We really wanted to look at how do we ensure the long-term sustainability of this partnership. So we wanted to look at the appetite for kind of community-based planning process to really come up with a plan for how we protect the lake plain going into the future. And what we did, the next slide, was we partnered with the Conservation Fund and the Conservation Finance Network. They got funding from the Illinois Coastal Management Program and a private foundation to do a lake plain feasibility study. And we had like some three main goals here. We wanted to address long-term conservation planning and governance of the partnership. We were all bound together by MOUs or IGAs, but we don't really have a formal structure. So how do we make decisions? How do we identify priorities? We also wanted to identify future ownership opportunities. The Nature Conservancy owns a significant portion of the lake plan. They've expressed interest in giving up that property and finding a long-term host and care for that property. And then we also want to evaluate strategies to ensure the financial sustainability of the partnership. Since we're so reliant upon grants, those grants dry up, what happens to the partnership? So we have these like big looming questions, like how do we really take this partnership to the next level? And they produced this really great feasibility study. We can kind of skip this kind of the methodology and what went behind it. But we wanted to really look at the community. How do we get the community more involved? Who are some other stakeholders that we haven't really engaged in the whole planning process? And how do we bring them all together to come up with a cohesive plan? And they went and interviewed community members, other stakeholders to really get an idea. And the big conclusion was expanding this collaborative work at Lake Plain is not only feasible, but ripe with interest and opportunity. So there was a lot of interest, a lot of engagement, a lot of opportunity to take this Lake Plain partnership to another level. And they came up with 3 main recommendations. The first one was to identify and secure designated capacity and advance stronger collaboration. One of the big things was we really need a full-time coordinator to really drive this work moving forward. I've been kind of, since Debbie Bauer left, I've been kind of taking the lead on this, but I could probably only dedicate 20–25% of my time to really moving forward this group. And to really take it to the next step, we need someone really dedicated to this. The other thing was to undertake a process to establish a regional or a common regional identity. When we found out it's the Lake Plain, we keep calling it the Lake Plain, Chillicothe Prairie Inland Beach Lake Plain. No one knew what that meant. So we need a catchier slogan like the Everglades, something a little bit more catchy. So one of the recommendations was to work with a marketing firm to really come up with like a better cohesive slogan that how we kind of connect everyone. And the last one is develop a collaborative action plan to prioritize methods of go to the next slide here. So what we're kind of working on now is taking what they also did is come up with a coordinator, a project manager scope of work. Like these really good 1 to 12 month or 24-month goals, 2-year goals. And we've been taking this to different funding sources. You can just go to the next slide. And we're trying to get funding together to hire a full-time coordinator to really drive and increase the amount of work we do. So that's kind of where we are. It's kind of an exciting opportunity to really take what we've done, what we've learned from that, and kind of take it to the next level. Where if we had someone and all the energy we have to promote ecological significance of this area, that's really endless opportunities. So with that, hopefully I didn't talk too long. I know I was hungry and happy to answer any questions.
Quick question, Gary. First of all, big shout out for Gary. Gary has been personally responsible for the rebound in the Blandings turtle population in this area. Great work. You has a facility dedicated to that sole purpose. But Gary, has there been any recent interest in turning this area into a national lakeshore, similar to what they do with the Indiana Dunes?
So that is a great question, and that was, so this was phase 1 of the feasibility study. And that was one of the questions we really had. And before we got to that step, like they wanted to complete this phase 1 and really come up with that planning process. Long story short, yes, there's a lot of interest in doing that. A lot of pieces need to fall in place. John Rodner could probably talk a little bit about what goes into that. How you met here, yeah. But it's difficult and long process. And it's something I would really like to see happen, but it's probably something that we don't.
Something that could kind of tie into your identity crisis too. That would help both ways, help either way.
But that's kind of one of the phase 2. If we get funding to hire this coordinator, phase 2, we're going to be looking into that, what we take, what the steps are, partners we have to get that